Cities around the world are in a constant state of flux as a result of climate change. The rapid changes in the ecological environment have had an appreciable impact around the globe, ranging from increases in temperature to complete life cycle changes for some organisms. Among the many causes of climate change is the steady increase of greenhouse gases over time. Subsequently, major metropolitan areas around the world are currently undergoing a change and restructuring to focus on developing a low-carbon urban city. This case study will analyse and highlight the key strategies as implemented by London in their efforts to reduce carbon emissions and their impacts on the city. Through this, a series of recommendations and conclusions will be made regarding potential plans which Sydney may be able to implement in the future. However, due to the government structure of Greater Metropolitan Sydney, numerous strategies may not be perfectly applicable. This, among many, is one of the reasons London was identified as a key case study, as they house a similar local government breakdown to Sydney. As such, we will be observing numerous strategies which have been implemented by London, including both legislative and non-legislative plans to reduce carbon emissions. The first strategy we'll observe is the Climate Change Mitigation and Energy Strategy. The Climate Change Mitigation and Energy Strategy rallies behind the following phrase: putting the village back into the city. What does the City of London mean by this? The intent of this strategy is to improve the quality of life in London by embracing and re-implementing cleaner and greener practices. Through this, the City of London hopes to develop a stronger community, allowing for it to develop into a more sustainable urban environment. This was accomplished by reducing overall CO2 emissions, maximizing economic opportunities of low-carbon goods and services, and ensuring a reliable alternative energy source is available for London. Focusing on the reduction of carbon emissions, London recognized that the carbon emissions of the city could be broken up into three primary sectors: workplace, households, and transport. Data shows that nearly 80% of carbon emissions in London are generated by existing buildings, and as such, the City of London has developed a series of programs aimed at improving the efficiency of existing structures in the city. Reconnect, Renew, and Refit are all programs implemented to improve efficiency by refurbishing the city's existing infrastructure on a neighbourhood scale, household scale, and workplace scale, respectively. Transport was also identified as a contributor to carbon emissions, and the switching to more carbon-efficient models of transport will serve to reduce CO2 levels, but also improve air quality, ensuring improved standard of living for Londoners. To achieve this, the strategy lays out plans for electric vehicles, providing the much-needed infrastructure around the city, such as charging stations. Low-carbon transport also encourages the use of low-carbon public transport, such as hybrid buses, which will be 40% more fuel efficient than the traditional diesel buses used before their introduction. Similarly, the Low Carbon London Collaborative Research Project, developed by UK Power Networks, sought to research and propose a series of alternative low-carbon practices which could be implemented by London in the future. They analysed aspects of the city such as energy generation and energy management in an effort to identify a series of activities which would enable London to reduce their carbon footprint. Some of the key aspects of the research project involved the implementation of incentives for renewable and low-carbon energy generation, such as feed-in tariffs, electrification of transport and heating as an alternative to current internal combustion vehicles and gas-fired boilers, respectively, demand-side management involving the engagement of the end consumer. These two projects represent a series of different strategies employed by both the government bodies and private non-profit bodies. The following strategies have proven to be effective over the past years, as London is exhibiting the lowest carbon emissions since the 19th century. Obviously, not all strategies will be relevant as the population sizes between Sydney and London are different. However, there are some which can be readily implemented to make an effort in reducing the quantity of Sydney's CO2 emissions. A key strategy that could be implemented in Sydney would be the electrification of transport and road infrastructure. As Sydney's population grows, so too does the amount of cars on the road. The number of cars in Sydney has increased by 2.1% in just 1 year, and as such, a large amount of CO2 emissions are increasing with it. If an alternative to petrol-based transport is incentivized, a significant contributor to Sydney's CO2 emissions could be mitigated. This, coupled with better education and consumer engagement, will ensure that citizens are aware of the impacts which inefficient energy consumption can have, allowing for a more informed approach towards a sustainable and resilient city.